Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm coming on so late. 1,794, I think. 1,794 days since Richard was forcibly taken after premeditation. You have to remember this was all premeditated for months. The retaliation, trying to set him up, because if you want to take someone's life, especially a soldier, you have to discredit him, right? You have to discredit him. You have to try to make it look like something it's not. And the cartel are very good at doing that, right? The cartel are now, El Paso, Fort Bliss, Juarez cartel, right? Mexico cartel. I mean, it's one big cartel, and it's all coming out, and it's um, on this day. It's a relief. It's coming out, but it's hell. I'm just going to be honest with you. It is like we've been put through hell. Um, so I'm going to explain a little bit about what has been happening so late, and please share this. We're being shadow banned. We're being blocked quite a bit because this is pretty gruesome, and this is implicating our officials, so many officials, so many individuals in our agencies, and also those that are tied to the cartel and the organized crime, including millionaires and billionaires. I mean, that's how they became this fancy rich, evil fancy rich, dark fancy rich, rotting fancy rich. Um, and, it really gives becoming rich a bad name. It really does. And I'm all for capitalism. I'm all for earning your way up to the top, but not like this, not criminally like this, at the expense of so many other lives, with criminal trafficking. And criminal trafficking gets very, very ugly, y'all. And there's just no morals there. There's no morals. This whole Mormon undercurrent, I just never knew. I never knew, like how dangerous it was to think that you can have multiple wives or multiple husbands. And so you're always in the dating game, and you're always, you know, um, uh, it gets very dirty. It gets out of control. It gets absolutely cultish. And 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 with this Mexican cartel is this underlining common denominator that is just there. I didn't put it there. It's just there. And everyone is worried about this group of people, this group of people, this group of people. And so I guess I'm just warning about um, this group of people that are absolutely engaged in organized crime. That is so evil. That is so bad. Um, it's just so bad. And so let's start from the beginning. This is day 1,794 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room, and his life was taken from him because he was reporting on the criminal trafficking that he witnessed. And of course, it ties with the Walmart mass shooting case because individuals involved in the mass shooting case are tied to his unit, are tied to the cartel. And that is why, there's such a huge cover up. We're at like 22 agencies now in this cover up that with Richard, because the organized crime had been developing for, I would say, decades. For decades, it's been developing there, and it became very profitable, and people were getting away with the worst type of crimes, especially the worst type of crimes against children that always require guns. It always requires guns if you're doing the worst type of crimes against children in a criminal syndicate. And when you are an organized criminal unit, it always involves guns. And of course, the organ harvesting crime, of course, the substances, of course, the weapons and the ammunition, and now we're getting more and more sophisticated with the drones. Um, they're buying drones, and that has a big connection here. Um, and I have really a lot of good news. I mean, this is so somber because it's just hell to report. I mean, I just can't, I don't know how else to report it to you, because it's what all we know. A couple days ago, I told you they were reporting like 10, a dozen, um, bodies being found, but now it's hundreds, y'all. And I said we had been given information that it was 300. Now they're reporting 383. So it's hundreds, y'all. It's hundreds and hundreds. It's um, because the media is not doing their job. Matter of fact, the Mexican media is doing a better job reporting on this, and it has every connection with the United States. And so that it is bad. You know that it is illegal. You know that it involves funeral homes in El Paso. You know that it involves uniformed um, veterans or uniformed individuals. You know that it involves um, narco politicians and officials. You know it does, because if it didn't, the media and the law enforcement would be all over the place already with individuals with handcuffs on. Okay? They already would have handcuffs on. But because of the sensitive nature of this exposure, this, and the involvement of, okay, let's do this. The alleged involvement of funeral homes in the United States, of narco politicians, the alleged participation of narco politicians, and they absolutely knew that this was happening, y'all. You just you just can't, like the Department of State can't just not know that bodies are being taken over to Juarez for disposal. Okay. And, so this whole thing with, oh, they could never take a body over there has just been blown up. Blown. I cannot tell you how many times I was told that they could not take bodies across the border over there to Juarez to dispose of them. And now this has been totally blown up because that rotting body dumping ground that they call a crematorium, but it's illegal, was in in essence being funded by USAID. By USAID. And so we have absolutely a right to know everything that happened. And we have absolutely a huge reason why our media should be over there reporting on this. It is sickening, but also confirming that this is implicating individuals Well, let's start with Juarez. Okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about, in the news and you have to dig for it, it's been discovered the most smelly, disgusting place with hundreds of rotting bodies, even dismembered body parts, and also multiple bodies in uniform. And we also are awaiting confirmation of what sources are telling us, that there are dog tags involved in this, dog tags, and that they were supposed to be getting cremated, but it became a rotting body dumping ground. Hundreds of bodies, like the worst thing that you can imagine about what happened in World War II, right? In Poland and that. The worst picture that you could even, it's hell. It's hell. And this is what happens, in my opinion, and everyone has an opinion. I have a right to my opinion. This is what happens when we depart from Corpus Christi, the honoring of the body, the hope for resurrection, the body as the temple of God, the sanctity of life. It is sickening, even if you're poor and can't afford, to have loved ones dumped, to have those that the cartel don't like and want to get rid of dumped, to have uniformed individuals dumped, to let in the hot sun, non air conditioned, some in cars, piled on top of each other, hundreds of bodies. And this is in stone throw distance from El Paso. El Paso and Juarez, Mexico are one big city that's divided by a fence. One big city. And what has happened over these years is they have allowed Mexican funeral homes that operate on different regulations. This has nothing to do with race or being whatever. This has to do with the laws, right? The regulations. And if you are in Mexico, you have to abide by different regulations than what you have to in Texas, in the United States. And you also have cost differences, employment differences, tax differences, energy cost differences. Everything is different. So to allow a funeral home that has the ability for cremation, and more people are cremating today. And you know what? Let me tell you, I've always personally, this is my opinion, I have always been against cremation. Okay, that's just my children know that that's not what I like. Okay, that's not what I believe. And this mess right here gives me a lot of corroborating reasons for not liking cremation. Let me tell you, a lot, a lot. It is wow. Because to have a rotting body dumping ground and the disrespecting the human body and even the animals, y'all, even the animals, I mean, no respect for the created. That means they have no respect for the creator. And this is the departure. It all, All arguments in this life, and this is not me, this is Van Til. If you read the great apologist, the great defender of the faith, of the Christian faith, and teacher of how to defend your faith, all arguments lead to God is. God is. And this horror hell rotting dumping ground, stone throw from El Paso, is happened because people do not understand that God is. And God is not a buttercup, y'all. He is patient. He is patient, but he is no buttercup. And the time, I don't predict time. I'm just like, okay, God, however, however you want to, you're in control. You're in control. And I just say, yes, sir. And this revelation of this kind of sacrilege, absolute sacrilege, it was ready to be exposed. Now is the time. And the only reason why it's being exposed now is because the leadership in the United States wants it to be. I firmly believe that. There is, we know, because of things that we know about the AG there that targeted us, targeted our son's case, AG Salas. We know he's in big trouble. How can he keep his job? And where is he? It's like he's nowhere to be seen right now. Where is he? I mean, he lives in El Paso, which is illegal. He's supposed to be the attorney general, the prosecutor for Chihuahua, Mexico. And yet, it is so bad out there in Juarez, where he allows his countrymen to live while he is safe in El Paso in his home. That is how connected El Paso and Juarez is. It's so connected. And how they can allow a funeral home, and the one that is really in our son's case, that is really on our minds, because our son's case has the common denominator is those that work in the funeral business, in mortuary affairs, in the child care business, which is a really, really ugly mix. And in uniform. And in uniform. In possession. And why is that important? Because they're in positions where they access information. They have access to information. Bill Hicks, the DA that went after Yvonne Rosales to remove her and replace her because she was investigating El Paso Community Foundation, for one, for the fraudulent distribution of the Walmart mass shooting victims funds. That was over $12 million. But also, we have confirmation she was investigating Richard's case, Richard's unresolved murder case. And Bill Hicks, with his group, with Bob Moore, Leilani Hart, Bob Moore, Underwood, Justin Underwood, um, and I've listed them all out. Um, Joe Spencer, they went after Yvonne Rosales to remove her and replace her. And Bill Hicks, what was he doing? He was representing Purchase Funeral Homes. And Purchase Funeral Homes, a Juarez-based funeral homes, was his biggest donor. His biggest donor. Why was a foreign funeral home business his biggest donor to be DA in El Paso, Texas? And I can't make this stuff up. And why in the world would the United States make a deal to allow Purchase Funeral Homes to operate in El Paso, in Texas, when their business is in Mexico? It's so messy. It's so messy because if you look it up, to cremate bodies, it's much cheaper, half the price in Mexico than in the United States. And if something didn't stink to high heaven in all of this, the media would be over there right now watching the law enforcement officials put people in handcuffs for the nastiest place, piles of bodies, a rotting body dumping ground, corpses, sacrilege, some in uniform, some dismembered. Just and funded essentially by USAID. Thank God that that's been cut off. Thank God that that's been cut off. That is what is going on. And the lies. Don't forget, the chief medical examiner is from Juarez. He's illegal. He broke his visa. He is not qualified. He is connected to those in Richard's case on Bliss Avenue, connected to multiple victims in the Walmart mass shooting case. And he was in charge of the cause and manner of death certificates that we know for sure in the Walmart mass shooting case, the victims, the death certificates and the victims, they are not right, y'all. They are not right. And who was in charge of the victims of the Walmart mass shooting case to work with Mario Raskin Ortiz, the chief medical examiner that is unqualified, that's illegally in this country, that is from Juarez, Mexico? Purchase Funeral Homes. Purchase Funeral Homes that has paperwork That is not right. And what do we have? We have autopsy numbers. Evidence confirms that something is so stinky, so stinky. And who is the biggest donor to Bill Hicks? Purchase Funeral Homes. But it's not just Purchase Funeral Homes, it's Martin Funeral Homes that is known to do veterans remains and funerals and has its own crematorium. And did Martin Funeral Homes send veterans or others to Mexico for cremation? And we know, oh gosh, it's the scamming, the sacrilege for lining people's pockets to create hell. Look at what they just did. They just created hell. They've been creating hell because, oh no, we can't have we can't have Christian values, right? We can't have Christian values. We can't have beautiful cathedrals and stained glass windows and choirs and beautiful songs of praise to God. We can't have baptism. We can't have marriage between a man and a woman. We can't have those kind of values. We can't have confession, meaning admitting that we are not perfect, that we are fallible, that we are under God, and that we need His law word to direct us. We need His forgiveness for any kind of future hope. We can't admit that. We can't say we need the Eucharist, we need the body of Christ at least every week. But when we meet two or three together for strength, a reminder of the 10 Commandments, we can't have the 10 Commandments that we shouldn't steal and con and murder and lie and be a false witness and cheat on our families, commit treason on the family, because that's what cheating on the family is. It's treason on the family. They just war against these beautiful values, these very short, easy to understand laws. Very short. No, they want complicated, look, this buildings and buildings and buildings full of laws and regulations. That's what they want. God gives us a medium-sized Bible, medium-sized book, 10 commandments, two commandments that summarize the 10. Anyone can learn how to read it, understand it, apply it to their life. And we reject it because we want this hell. We want the criminal trafficking. We want the sacrilege of our loved ones or even anybody. animal's body, the land. We just want the desecration of the land. Think about that land now. How much blood has been spilt on that land? How many ashes? And God is no buttercup. He's watching this all. And this AG Salas, Carlos Manuel Salas, he has to answer for the and this governor, Campos, she needs to answer for this. There is no excuse. None. And for anyone to say to us that are pushing to, because we believe they have our son's remains, even if it's partial remains, to say, oh no, partial remains are not over in Mexico. That Nadal Baim, he was misleading you. No, he said they found Richard in Mexico. Then we had the DHS confirm this. Then we had the Department of State confirm it. We're not shooting from the hip or believing one witness. And Nadal Baim was not just nobody. Why did they have to lie to us to protect a cartel-tied, Manny Chavira-tied, Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado-tied, Palestinian arms dealer that has a record for terroristic threats, right? And tax violations, and now is being sued by Western Frontier Trading, the very company he was bidding $3 million to the El Paso Police Department for ammunition. Where did he get the ammunition from? Because all of this criminal trafficking, Fort Bliss is right there. They're not afraid of Fort Bliss at all. Why? Because Fort Bliss is complicit. And Richard blew the whistle. Fort Bliss is complicit. And we are so calloused that we can read or know or learn about hundreds of bodies just piled on top of each other. Yeah. Where is the outcry? Where is Veronica Escobar? Where is, oh, I just love to help Latinas. Where is she? How many Latinas are in that pile? I advocate for this. I advocate for the military. You've got individuals in that pile in uniform. In uniform. Where is her demand to know for sure? Because we have this information that there's dog tags. Where is the evil Bernabe? He needs to be stripped from his uniform. Stripped from. We've been right all along. These are traitors. These are treasonous, and they're just they're just the walking rotten. That's what they are. The walking rotten. to allow this to happen, to have such a disdain for the human body, for creation. To be complicit with these funeral homes, with these cartel operators that are operating a rotting body dumping ground, that wear our uniforms, that get our funding. My goodness, they were sending these luxurious buses over there to pick up Mexican children to bring them over to our schools, which is not a good place to be. Because we know that El Paso ISD has schools with tunnels underneath it that are engaged in criminal trafficking. Otherwise, why in the world would they have Manny Chavira as the chief of El Paso ISD if there wasn't something really stinky going on in El Paso ISDs in the schools? And why in the world would they want to ever hire the likes of Amber Chase, a mortuary affairs taint, a taint? If they weren't so stinky, if they weren't trying to cover something up, and why would Manny Chavira be so protected? Because they share this family together, right? They share this family together with Bob Moore of El Paso Matters. Total conflict of interest that absolutely trafficked Richard's car, that absolutely targeted Richard, that absolutely is family with Nadal Bayim. I mean, this group absolutely has all the connections, the family connections, the business connections, the cartel connections. They are co-conspirators in every way that you turn them. They are co-conspirators targeting Richard and then ending his life and covering it up and trying to smear him and make him not important, just like these corpses, these remains that are over there dumped to rot at a crematorium that is getting paid, and they let hundreds of thousands, no, that's the children, hundreds of body, who knows how many this is going to be, because this has been going on for years, because um the funeral, it's 1 o'clock, 1:30 here. The funeral, what do you call it? Union guy, right? Mr. Ruiz. I know a Ruiz. Um, said there is no way that those 300, 400, 500, how many hundreds of rotting remains, even partial remains, even remains with uniforms, uh, probably embedded on their skin. I mean, their service is now part of them. They're in their uniform. And that they could not possibly be there since 2020. because they would, and we know that from these other cases with Caleb Smither in the fifth stage of decomposition. We know that it takes, 8 days, and they the whole process of decomposition, because Caleb Smither's case was very important to us. That kind of neglect cannot be tolerated. In the barracks room in the fifth stage of decomposition, 8 days, 8 days. Well, these hundreds of bodies, the smell was overwhelming. It's just a nightmare. And it just tells you that the leadership that the countrymen of Mexico are paying for, they're not getting honest services. And the officials that we're paying for in the agencies, we're not getting honest services. And what is the message here? The message is really positive, and this is where I'm going to leave with a very positive note. This is being exposed, and the media is, I can't even believe that they're reporting on it. They should be all over this, but because it involves people they don't want you to know that are involved, but still it's being reported and it's being exposed. And we know a lot of background information because we have been in communication with the government. We've been in communication with those that have tampered with our son's missing persons report, have been tampering with our son's case. We've been in touch with DC. We've been in touch with other officials, and I can absolutely say that this is all on purpose. This is all part of the larger investigation into the criminal trafficking that Richard was exposing, that Richard was reporting. And it is all an attempt. I think it's probably more than an attempt, but at this time I'm going to say attempt to give us our son's remains. And it is ugly, but very welcome that they're doing something that we knew would be very ugly. But in order to get our son's remains, and hold those that did what they did to our son, the Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier, to hold them accountable. The prime suspect is Dallas Hart. His mother, Leilani Hart, why is she changing her name? She's changed her name, and from Maru or whatever, I'll put it up again. And why is she changing her name? And of course, others. And more news coming out because what Electra was saying in 2021 is shocking, because these four dudes, one dude, one, I guess hit, fixer, whatever you want to call it, executioner, whatever you want to call them, that were ordered to go after Richard, that were paid to go after Richard. One of them was named Anthony, and now we have a whole name. We have a whole name. And so this Anthony, yeah, It's all coming out. And this is the good news, because what we've been waiting for is to receive our son's remains and to hold those that did this accountable. And that means um, that a lot of people will get justice, because thanks be to God that they have uncovered this place, and we absolutely have to take it by the horns and make sure that all of these crematoriums and whatever funeral homes that were involved in all of this, that knew this, or even maybe universities that knew this, that they're held accountable. And also for the victims, families of the Walmart mass shooting, this is very important information, because some families were told that they got their loved one back and it was really animal ashes. They were conning people about what they were giving back and charging them big money. So, and I don't want to belittle any animal's ashes, because I just think it's so horrible. But this kind of con job, and we know that Danae Katzen and Jonathan Ambrose and Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, they were so, and Leilani Hart, they're so deep in, and Bob Moore is so deep in his con jobs, his fixing, his jefe capo, his creating and fixing, and false reporting and using false witnesses and false sources, and he's just a big con man. That's what he is. And he absolutely is a co-conspirator in the targeting and in the um, silencing of our son. So thank you for coming on. I know it was probably a pretty hard to hear live stream. It's just it has to happen. It has to happen so we can get justice for our son, but also for the Walmart victims' families, but also for all those victims of this criminal syndicate, this sacrilege. They just they engage in sacrilege, y'all. Go read how God feels about sacrilege. He is no buttercup. And that's how emboldened, that's how sick, absolutely sick these people are to engage in sacrilege like this. And we just had Corpus Christi. We just had the day of Corpus Christi where we recognize the body. How we absolutely have to respect our bodies, because they're not our own. It's not our own. This whole thing, it's my body, I can do. No, it's not your own. No. So, thank you, everyone. God bless you. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.